Hey everybody, in this tutorial today, I'm going to be modeling for you the upper die pressure ring for activity 4.8G. So make sure you go to the assignment page and then open up the activity document. And then when you get on the document, make sure you scroll down to number 7 for the upper die pressure ring. In the directions you'll see, it'll say to use the revolve tool and the circular pattern tools, which is a new tool that we're going to learn how to use. And then also to name that file upper die pressure ring underscore your last name. When I'm going to do this one, since the past couple exercises we've used the revolve tool. This time I'm going to build this in a slightly different way, but we'll get the same result. And that's really what I'm trying to show you, is that you can build a lot of these figures in multiple ways. And so I want to kind of just show you a different way of doing it, but I think a more kind of streamlined way of doing it as well. So obviously, looking at this figure here, we can see there are a lot more dimensions, I should say. As we get more detailed figures, we see that the more dimensions get added to the figures. But this figure here is pretty simple. I mean, obviously, the biggest shape here we can see is a circle. So that's what we're going to start with. I'm going to start with some circles and then just start adding in pegs. And there's some holes here, some hole features. But are also on what they call the bottom and the top, so maybe the front and the back. So it just depends on how you want to look at the figure. Okay, so let's go ahead and start building this. So let's go into Onshape. Let's go hit Create and then select Document. We're going to call it Upper Die Pressure Ring underscore your last name, and then click OK. Okay, and again, we get our 3 default work planes, top, front, and right, and I'm going to be using the front work plane to start. So I'm going to go ahead and hide the top, I'm going to hide the right, and I'm going to stick with the front. And so I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch, and then I'm going to go ahead and choose the front work plane. And then I'm going to square it up so I can see the front, just like we've normally done. So what is the first thing I'm going to do? As I mentioned before, I'm going to draw it with a circle. So the outer circle of our figure here, since I'm not doing it as a revolve, I'm going to go ahead and use the full diameter, and that's going to be 3.0625. So I'm going to start with that first, and then I'm going to right away, I'm going to extrude this. So I'm going to make it three-dimensional right from the start. So how thick is this? And then I'll start adding in the details. So how thick is this part? So now I have to actually come over here to that section view. So this part's been cut in half. So we call this a full section view. And so the thickness of the actual part, you'll notice there are a bunch of different thicknesses here, is actually 0.3125. It's this dimension right here. So that's just the thickness of the part. And then we'll add in the other parts as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first dimension we're going to add is a circle of 3.0625 and then extrude it 0.3125. So we're going to use center point circle. We're going to choose the center point or the origin point on our front view, and then draw it out, and then hit dimension, choose the outside edge, and then make it 3.0625, enter. And again, if you need to resize that, just hit the front tool. Now we're going to go ahead and finish our sketch. We're going to hit isometric view, and then we're going to go ahead and extrude it. And as I mentioned before, we're going to extrude it 0.3125. Now notice right away it pushed it out from the plane that we did forward, so I want to push it back. So I'm going to choose the opposite direction for our extrusion and then change the depth to 0.3125. Enter. Okay, and there we have the thickness of the part, and we're going to go ahead and hit the green check mark. So now we have a basic shape, and it's now three-dimensional, and our circular little plate here. And so now we're going to start adding in some of the details. So the next thing that I'm going to add in here is, if you notice, there's another circle on the part, and it's on the interior, and it's going to have a diameter of 2.0625, but it's sunken into the ring that we just created. So we need to figure out how much that sunken in part is. So if you notice right down below, it says 0.031. So we're actually going to do another extrusion with a removed of 0.031. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go ahead and we can go ahead now and just hide the front. We're not going to need that anymore. So we'll just go ahead and hide the front now. We're going to choose sketch. We're going to choose that face right here, surface right here. Okay, that'll create sketch 2. I'll again change it to my front view. So it focuses in. I'm going to choose center point circle again. Okay. And I'm going to draw another circle. And this time I'm going to dimension it and make it 2.0625. Okay. And then I'm going to finish my sketch again. I'm going to choose isometric view. And this time I'm going to extrude, and I'm going to select remove, change it to 0.031, and then choose this inner part. And that will cut in this part just to what I need it to be, 0.031, and then hit the check mark. Okay, so now you see a little bit more of what the ring looks like. And again, if I want, I can go back to isometric view. Didn't change it too much. Okay, so now we need to start adding in some of the details on our figure. So we have what the general part looks like. Now we notice we have some pegs here. We have some holes on the back side. And another peg on the backside. So let's start with these front pegs, okay? And those are these 3 right here. And so they do another view over here. And so we're going to have 3 pegs. See, notice it says with a diameter of 0.1875 times 3. That means they're all the same. Anytime you see times another number, that means all of them will have the same diameter. We notice that the distance of those pegs is from the center point is going to be 1.3125. And again, they're going to kind of circulate around the ring. So that's where this circular pattern tool is really going to come into help here. So, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to draw a circle and have it with a diameter of 0.1875, but then 1.3125 from the center. So we'll start with that. So those little pegs are going to go on this outside ring. So I'm going to create a sketch, choose the outside ring. Notice I get sketch 3. I'm going to select front. And then I'm going to choose the center point circle tool again. I want to make sure it's aligned to the center point. So I just hover over the center point and then get that little gold dashed line. And I know the peg is going to go up here. And then drag it out. Okay, and just draw it to a size. So now I need to size it correctly and place it correctly. So the first dimension I'm going to do, so select the dimension tool, is dimension it in the right spot. So I'm going to go ahead and click the center point of the circle I just drew, and make it 1.3125, enter. And that shifts it up just a little bit. And then the diameter of that circle is going to be 0.1875, enter. Okay, check that, I believe so. Yep, okay, good. So now I have the circle where I want it and in the place that I want it. Okay, so now I'm ready to extrude it. So let's go back and finish our sketch first. Okay, we're going to hit isometric view. Okay, and then we are going to go ahead and extrude it out. So how far does that peg come out of the circle? So, or from the ring. And so we have to look a little bit closer. So we know the thickness was 0.3125, but notice it says 0.531, but that 531 is pointing from the back edge to the center or top part of the circle. So that means I'm going to have to do a little math here, but I'm going to let Onshape do that work for me. So I'm going to hit extrude. I'm going to choose my peg. Notice it came out way too far. And so now I'm going to do 0.531 minus 0.3125 and then hit enter. And now it places that peg just about the right distance, including the back. So it's sticking out that distance, and then we're going to go ahead and hit the check mark. Okay, so now I have one of those pegs on there. Okay, but I also know that there's 3 of them. But before I even get to that, notice on the top of the peg, see these pegs here, and even on the one that'll be on the back side, they have these little rounded tops to them. So let me show you how to do that. So what we're gonna have to do is add another sketch. And this time we're gonna add that sketch to the top of the peg. So you might need to zoom in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on the top peg, and it creates another sketch, which is sketch 4. And then again, I'm gonna change it to the front view. And again, I might zoom in. Zooming helps to make sure I have the right size. I'm gonna choose circle again. I'm gonna go to the center of my circle and then drag it out and make it the same size as my original diameter. Then I'm gonna select the line tool, and I'm gonna go to my peg and the circle that I just drew. And I wanna go to the top, so I'm gonna hover over the center and go to the top. And all I'm doing is drawing a vertical line straight through, cutting my circle in half. Right-click, escape line. Okay. Now I have 2 halves to my circle here. That's exactly what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and finish sketch. I'm going to hit isometric view. Now what I'm going to do is revolve. And I'm going to choose half of the circle. I'm going to choose the red box for revolve axis and select that line I just drew. And then it's going to put that little cone on top and hit the green check mark. Okay, so now it's got that round, and now it looks like that rounded peg like you see in the picture here. But again, now we're back to the same problem, where is we have 3 of them, right? And that was a lot of steps even just to create one. So let's use a little shortcut here, another little tool that'll help us. Okay, so I'm going to go back to isometric view for a second. Okay, and now what I want to do is I want to replicate those 3. Okay, but I want to replicate them around my figure. Okay, so this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to use what's called the circular pattern tool. So yours might be defaulted to linear. Okay, it's the little squares here, one with a white box. Hit the little down arrow and change it to circular. Okay, now what it wants to do is it wants to know, okay, what entities do you want to pattern? So normally I would just pick the peg, but it doesn't allow me to do that. So if I just kind of hover over here and choose this back edge, okay, and then now it says axis of pattern. Once I do that, then I'm going to choose the inner ring. Okay, and now it kind of previews how many pegs I have. And I'm going to go ahead and select instance count. I'm going to change that to 3. Okay, and now I hit enter, and now it places them in the right spot. Okay, and then go ahead and hit the green check mark. Okay, so now I have those same peg that I originally built, but now there's 3 of them, and they are all spaced apart. So if I turn into my front view, you can kind of see them. They're equally spaced, but 360 all the way around. Go back to isometric view. And so now I have those pegs on there. Okay, so we've added some detail. So now let's go back to our figure. Now, on the back side, we have 2 sets of holes and another peg. Okay, so let's go ahead and start creating those holes, and then we'll finish this figure up. All right, so the first hole is just a 0.25 through. So we can use the hole feature for that, or we could just draw a circle and cut it all the way through. Either one would work. This is a countersink hole. Okay, so I'll go over how to do the countersink with you, but let's start with the center point hole first. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to select and create a sketch, but the sketch has to be on the back side. So currently we are on the front, so we want to rotate our view around to the back. Okay, and then we're going to create sketch, choose the back side to create our sketch, and that'll be sketch 5. Now I'm going to rotate my view around just so I'm focusing on the back, and this time I'm going to add the point tool. Okay, and I'm going to put a point here, right on our center point or our origin point, and I'm going to put another point right above it. Okay, and again, notice I hovered and got the little dash golden line. That way I know those 2 holes will be lined up. Okay, so let's figure out what is the distance between those two. That's the first thing we need to know. And if you can see here on our figure, the distance between those two holes is 0.50. So let's do that. Okay, so dimension from the center to our point, and we'll make that 0.5. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and we are going to add the hole feature. So we're going to need to finish our sketch, click the clear new checkbox, and now we're going to go to our hole tool. Okay, and so I'm going to click hole, and I'm going to change this to a simple hole. I'm going to make sure it says through. I'm going to change it to custom, okay, because it's just a simple hole, so we don't really need to add any specificity to it. So, and I'm then going to just change the diameter to 0.25, okay, and then I'm going to select the hole, and that's the one in the middle. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit the green check mark. Now watch, when I hit the green check mark, our dot that we just dimensioned above it, or the point right above it, right, that we had dimensioned, is now gone. Okay, but notice if I go to isometric, it's going to rotate it back to the front. See, it goes all the way through. Then I rotate it to the back again. Now watch, to get that point back and then just add another hole, all I'm going to do is go over to my features bar, and then I'm going to uncheck the little I next to sketch 5. That'll bring the point back that I want. And now I'm going to select hole feature again, click on that. And now I'm going to go ahead and change our hole to countersink. Okay, and how do I know it's countersink? Because of this little arrowhead symbol right here, kind of looks like a V. Okay, and now it's going to be a 0.25 through with a 0.344 by 82 degree countersink. Okay, so let's make sure we have all that information in there. All right, so I'm going to change it to countersink. All right, and we know it's a through hole. Okay, so that's what I was double checking there. So we want it through. So we're going to keep it at custom, and then we're going to have a 0.25, right? Because that's the original. All right, that's the diameter of the shaft, and then the countersink is 0.344, and then our degrees is 82 degrees. Now it's asking us, okay, what points do we want? Okay, and then we're just going to select our point. And now you'll notice, see, it has that little countersink. It's actually angled in, and it's now going through the part. And we can rotate it back to our front view. You can see it going through. Rotate it to the back, and we can see the countersink. That way we know it's good. And then we hit the green check mark. Okay. Now, the last thing we need to add to the back is another peg. So in this case here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a new sketch. So we're going to go ahead and add another sketch. I'm going to choose the back again. And then we're going to focus on the back view. And if we look again, it's going to be very similar like we did with the first 3 pegs. It's going to be another diameter. So what is the diameter of the peg? It's going to be 0.25. Okay, and that's this part here. And how far does that come out? So let's look here. So we're going to have to go back down to our section view, and notice from the back edge, it's going to come out 0.875. Right, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to have a 0.25 diameter circle with a 0.875 extrusion. All right, so let's do that. Go ahead and hit circle, line it up. Okay, again, we want to make sure we're lined up to the middle, right? So we're going to do a 0.25 circle, dimension. Oh, one of the things I did forget to check was, okay, well, how far is it? What's the location? So let's go back and look at that. The location from the center point, or the center hole there, is 0.6875. So while we're here, we'll just go ahead and dimension that. So the center point to center point is 0.6875. Enter. Okay, so now we're in the right spot. Now we're ready to extrude. So we're going to go ahead and finish the sketch. we're going to go ahead, and this time I'm just going to choose the top left corner when it says back on my view cube. That'll just tilt it so it didn't rotate it all the way back to the front. And now I'm going to extrude. And this time I'm going to add my depth to 0.875 and then choose our circle. Okay, and it extruded out 0.875. I'm going to go ahead and hit the green check mark. But again, notice on the peg, if we look closely, it has that rounded top again. So we're going to do the exact same thing we did the last time. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a sketch. We're going to create that sketch right on top of that peg. Change it to my back view. I'm going to go ahead and choose center point circle again, making sure that I have it. I might need to zoom in a little. And it's not quite catching it. So watch, if it doesn't catch for you like it's not doing for me, watch what I do. I'll just make it a little smaller and then dimension it the same. So for whatever reason, it just was not catching the edge. 0.25, enter. So now I know they're the exact same. It's always the safest way to be sure you have the right dimension. And so then I'm going to cut it in half again, just like I did with the original peg. Okay, I'm going to finish the sketch. And then I am going to revolve it again to give it that cone, rounded cone on top. Choose my revolve axis, so that's the line down the middle. Okay, and then hit the green check mark. Okay, now you notice that the color is slightly different than our original color. If you want to change that, it's pretty easy. We're going to go ahead and select, right-click on Extrude 4, add appearance to feature. Okay, you'll get the little color palette, and then we're just going to change it to the palette here, and then select Revolve 2 as well. That'll change the color for both of them at the same time, and then just hit the green check mark. I just chose this kind of light blue color here. It looks like it's about the same. And then hit the green check mark. So now that peg is on there. Okay, we have our holes. We have our pegs in the front. So let me go back to isometric view. Okay, and so as I rotate that around, you can kind of see, okay, the holes are going through, the pegs are all there, they got the rounded tops. Ready to take to the other side, I got my countersink hole on this side, through, got the peg on this side. Now, there's one last detail that we need to add, and that is a rounding or a fillet of the outer two edges. Notice this dimension here. See how it says R.031 front and back? So what it's telling us is that we are going to do a feature fillet of the outside edges of the circle that we originally drew. So to do that, what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and go back to isometric view if you're not already there. So this time I'm going to use the fillet tool in the features bar. So up at the top, I'm going to select fillet. Okay, and then I'm going to change our radius value to 0.031. And then it wants, what do you want to fillet? So I want this front edge and then this back edge. And they'll both be 0.031, and then hit the green check mark. And now what that did is it kind of rounded those edges, so now they have a nice smoother round. And so now I'll go back to isometric view. And that is our upper die pressure ring. If you have any questions, please let me know.